Hey everyone, it's me, Aaron, Professor Thorgi, and I am so tired right now. Okay, I'm just going to go ahead and give you guys a little bit of info on what's going on behind the camera here. Yesterday, we put up a brand new editorials. It's the very first one of those episodes that we have done in months. It was all about Sony and their future Spider-Man movies and our jumbled bag of opinions on that. So, that video went up yesterday, and I swore I am going to make sure this video goes up on this date. Yesterday was the deadline that I had set for myself, and I swore no matter what, I was going to get that video up in time. And we did! And it's actually been doing pretty well, and I'm pleased to say that editorials will be returning. It is going to now be a once-a-month show, just like Pitching In, so we are going to be having brand new editorial episodes regularly on this channel. However, one of the reasons why I was able to hit that deadline I set for myself is because I stayed up for 48 hours straight working on that video. Wouldn't recommend it. That's the first time that I've ever stayed up that long working on one single project, and I think I went a tiny bit crazy, definitely dehydrated. So I just want to come in here real quick and just talk to all the young creators out there who are thinking, man, in order to make it on YouTube, in order to make it in the entertainment business, in order to make it in my desired field, I have to set some stuff aside and dedicate some time to these projects. Yes, you do have to make sure that you dedicate enough time to the projects to get them looking just the way that you want. However, if by dedicate some time to this project, you mean I will stay up for days on end with no sleep, don't do that. This is you from the future talking back to you and saying, practice self-health. Make sure that you take care of yourself, get enough sleep, get enough to eat, set aside some time just to relax, play a couple video games, just chill out every now and again. It's healthy. Take care of yourself. Don't be like me, disheveled and looking like I'm twice as old as I actually am. Don't do that. No, make sure that you take care of yourself. So yes, we are going to be doing editorials as a regular monthly show once again on this channel. But if I don't hit a deadline, then I don't hit a deadline. I'm not doing that again. However, because I worked my butt off on a Spider-Man themed video yesterday, and we also have a brand new Pitching In coming out in just a few days that is also going to be themed around comic books, I decided that today we would not be doing an episode of Comic Class. Very sorry to everybody who was looking forward to that all week long, but yeah, I need kind of a little break. But I've decided that I am still going to do an episode of Thorgi's Picks because I want you guys to have at least some kind of a weekly comic book show here on this channel. I mean, aside from the Sony Spider-Man video we just did and the other video that I have coming up in just a few days, I wanted to make sure that you guys had 3 comic book themed videos this week. So yes, for today's Thorgi's Picks, the show in which I give you a quick comic book recommendation, and then I put a link in the description down below of where you can buy that book on Amazon, and if you buy that book or anything else on Amazon, as long as you start by going through that link, we get a small cut of the profits. It's a great way to treat yourself and support this channel at the same time. Bam! New record on that one. Okay, since we talked very largely yesterday about the Sony Spider-Man movies, particularly the Venom film, and we're also going to be talking about Venom in an upcoming video in just a few days, I thought, you know what, today on Thorgi's Picks, how about I share with you guys my absolute favorite Venom story of all time. And it's not going to be what a lot of you guys are expecting, because most people out there, when they say, okay, this is my favorite Venom story, they tend to go to Eddie Brock. Nobody goes to Matt Gargan, but they mostly go to Eddie Brock. I'm going with Flash Thompson. Yeah, I gotta admit, Venom is a character that I loved when I was a kid. One of the very first comics that I ever got was that classic Todd McFarlane Venom comic. It wasn't the actual comic, it was a trade of it. But I read Venom's very first storyline when I was a little kid, and I fell in love with the character. But it's one of those characters that I kind of fell out of love with as I got older. As I got older and they kind of just kept doing the same stuff with Venom over and over and over again, I kind of got bored with the character. He just didn't have that kick to me anymore. But he didn't really have that kick with a lot of audiences anymore, because there came a period of time in which Marvel decided, okay, we have to liven Venom up. People aren't really reading his series anymore. Nobody's really asking for him to guest star in any books anymore. What can we do to make him different? And they tried a lot of stuff. They gave Eddie Brock cancer, they had the Venom symbiote become just pure evil, and now Eddie was like the captive host of the Venom symbiote rather than the two of them working together. Then they had Eddie Brock sell off the Venom symbiote, and it ended up going to Matt Gargan, the old Scorpion character, and then they tried making him Venom for a little while, and he ended up popping up. Did I mention that I'm very tired? He ended up popping up on the Dark Avengers Norman Osborn team, and they did a lot of stuff with him over there. But after trying so many things with Venom, they finally found something that stuck for a little while. They had Flash Thompson, the old boy who used to beat up Peter Parker in high school, who eventually turned his life around, joined the army, and did become a friend to Peter Parker. He ended up losing his legs in a war. And the United States military was very impressed by what he did, by the heroic sacrifice that he made. They were also very impressed by the fact that he was a massive Spider-Man fan. So they decided, you know what? You've shown that you're a hero. You've shown you've got the right training. You've also shown that you idealize the guy who we would be giving you powers similar to. Let's test this out on you. So the United States government took the Venom symbiote away from Matt Gargan, and they gave it to Flash Thompson. And when I heard they were doing that, again, this was coming on the tail of Marvel over the past couple years, constantly just throwing whatever they could against the wall to see what would stick with Venom. So I was looking at it like, yeah, okay, it's just gonna be another random idea that you come up with. I have no interest in this because, you know, Flash Thompson is actually a pretty cool character. He has gone through a massive character arc over the course of Spider-Man's long history. So when you just sit down and look at the character of Flash Thompson, hey man, he's an awesome character. But as Venom? That's kind of weird. And they started showing off art for this new Venom, and he was now in like body armor, and he was carrying guns around with him, and he had like the big American flag behind him. It just felt so weird. It was so bizarre to look at this version of Venom and just go, this is the most random thing I've ever seen. I have no idea how this is going to work. And it ended up becoming one of my favorite Marvel books at the time, and definitely my favorite Venom storyline of all time. When Flash Thompson initially got the symbiote on him, he had to keep taking these supplements in order to try and suppress the symbiote, in order to try and keep it from taking control of him. And for a while they worked, but yeah, you can't really bottle that genie up forever. It eventually did keep breaking out here and there. On almost every mission that he went on, yeah, it would find a little moment to break free here, and Flash had to keep looking at like, okay, this is going to be a problem. Like, Flash went into this thinking, oh my god, I'm just like Spider-Man. I'm a real superhero myself. And watching that dramatic turn where he had to face the dark reality of, no, you're not Spider-Man. You're Venom. And those are two very different things. When he had to now realize what he had become, and he had to realize this is a whole new set of challenges that I'm going to have to face, yeah man, it was some really deep stuff. This is a character who went on a massive journey over the course of this series, not just emotionally, not just, okay, I have to deal with this horrible situation that I'm in. I also just mean like a physical journey. He went all over the place on all these crazy missions. Like in the second issue, he ended up running into Kraven, and it was actually a great tiny little Kraven storyline, and also a great Flash Thompson storyline. Not Venom, Flash Thompson, because there comes a moment in which Flash Thompson just can't use the symbiote in there, and you see Flash is still in this fight. Yeah, that was probably the moment in issue number 2 that actually made me go, oh, I actually really like Flash now. I mean, I liked him as a supporting character before, but now I'm behind him being the protagonist of this book. I am all on board with this. So yeah, within 2 issues, they fully got me on board with this idea. I was 100% behind this. And this was written by Rick Remender, and it was written by him like right before he blew up. In fact, this was one of the series that helped him kind of become the big deal in the comic book industry that he is today. These days, he's known for multiple indie series that he's putting out, one of which is actually being turned into a TV series. So yeah, he's actually kind of a huge name in comics these days. But when he was working on this book, it was right at that moment when everybody was starting to talk about him, when there were like those rumbles of this guy could be a really huge thing. But I do have to come in here and address, I know a lot of people out there have lots of problems with Rick Remender. And I'm not going to go into everybody's problems with him, but I will say, I understand everybody's problems with him. I am not going to come in here and try to go, well, you know, when he actually writes this, what he's actually trying to say is, no, he's written some really dumb stuff over the years. He's that guy who had Havoc make that speech about don't call me a mutant. Yeah, that was bad. That's the word I'm going with. Bad. But another complaint that a lot of people tend to have with Rick Remender, and again, I understand it, is that he just writes really dark and depressing stuff. And when he gets put on a book like Captain America or the Avengers, yeah man, it is kind of like shoving that square peg into that round hole. Not saying that those books can't be dark and depressing, just saying he was kind of beating people over the head on those series with that tone. But in a Venom book, that absolutely works. This was a perfect book to put him on. He really did capture the struggle that Flash had to go through in this book. This is the first time in probably my comic book reading life in which I read a Venom series. Not a Spider-Man series where he had the symbiote on him, not another book where someone else had the symbiote on them, not a book where Venom was popping up as a guest star to be a villain. No, in which I read a Venom series and I actually went, oh, the symbiote is scary. The symbiote is a bad thing. You do not want this symbiote to get on you. It will consume you. It will take control of you. You will lose who you are inside of it. You will basically become just this walking weapon going out there to destroy whatever hero you run across, even if it is your all-time favorite hero. There is a moment here in which Flash ends up being forced by the Venom symbiote to fight Spider-Man. Man, this is a guy who is on a mission, trying to save people, but the symbiote takes control of his body and forces him to fight his own hero. That's some drama for your mama right there. That is a heartbreaking scene to find our protagonist in, and that's the point. You should be heartbroken in a scene like that. And Rick Remender is a guy who can write a heartbreaking scene. He nailed the really dark and depressing moments in this series. Like, not to repeat myself, but I remember when I was a kid reading Venom books, I thought, oh man, the symbiote would be so cool. Oh, to have this thing just come over you and turns into a suit and then you're all big and a monster and you can go out there and be a big hero. This is the first time in which I read a book and went, no, it would be awful if the symbiote was on you. This thing is evil. It is a monster. You do not want it on you. And that's exactly how you should feel when you read a Venom book. But he also really dove into Flash Thompson's past, because a big part of Flash's past is that he did have an alcoholic, abusive father. And listen, Rick Remender, one of the problems that I have with him in pretty much everything he writes is that every character he writes has massive daddy issues, or they're a father who has massive issues being a father. Rick Remender basically uses his comics to be therapy sessions, which, hey man, using your art to get out your own problems and your own issues, that's one of the things that art is there for. It is there to be an expression of what you're going through. I'm not going to critique anybody for using their art as a therapy session. But man, he uses all of his art for that same therapeutic issue. Eventually it does come to a point where he's like, okay, are you sure you don't want to talk to someone about this? I mean, I understand you're going through massive stuff here, but man, every single character he writes suddenly has massive daddy issues. But Flash Thompson already had massive daddy issues, so it fit in here. In every single other Rick Remender book, whenever I read it, I always go, oh man, okay, I was enjoying this, but the second that a character mentions, how can I live up to the expectations of my father? How can I get over this giant shadow that my father is casting? How can I be a better father to my child than my father was to me? Whenever you get to that moment in a Rick Remender book, no matter how much I was enjoying it, it just takes me out of it and goes, oh yeah, I'm not reading a story anymore. I'm looking at something that a guy wrote. And you should never think that while you're reading a book. When you're reading a book, you should be fully immersed in it. And that's something that always kept me from getting fully immersed in Rick Remender books. But here it absolutely works. Here it absolutely is necessary. In fact, if you didn't bring this up in a Flash Thompson Venom series, it would be a problem. If you are writing Flash Thompson as Venom, this does have to come up at some point. And Rick Remender is the guy you want to give something like that to. So there you go, folks. The book that I'm recommending to you today is Volume 1 of the Rick Remender Venom series. It was an absolute surprise in the best ways possible. It took a character like Venom, who I had fallen out of love with, and I had kind of gotten bored with, and injected such new life into him. It was the first time that I actually really got a full understanding of how creepy the Venom symbiote is. And it took a character like Flash Thompson, who had always been sitting on the sidelines, and it made him an MVP. It took a character who I had always been like, yeah, he's the supporting character and he'll never be anything else, and made me love him as a protagonist. It is so rare something like that can happen, and this book pulled it off. But it didn't just provide me with a great Venom series, it provided me with an emotional roller coaster. It provided me with a series in which I really did get inside Flash Thompson's head, and I really did have such a huge appreciation for everything that character has gone through. So absolutely recommend to everybody the Flash Thompson Rick Remender Venom series. Check it out in the link down below. Remember, if you use that link to buy that book, either physically or digitally, then we get a small cut of the profits. Same thing goes for if you buy anything on Amazon, as long as you start by going through that link. Thanks for tuning in, everyone, and as I said, Comic Class will be returning next week with a brand new episode. Thank you all for understanding, and if you didn't check out our editorials yesterday about the upcoming Venom movie and all the other Sony Spider-Man plans, then it will be popping up in just a second. Thanks for tuning in, everyone. Come back next time. Bye.